word was out on Madonna. And this girl is hungry to be a star, and she will do anything. It's not this man or this woman has something that I want. It's this person has something that I want. Therefore, I am going to use the only thing I have to barter for that, and that's me.
She somehow snuck into a record industry party, and Madonna, I think no one actually knew how she got in there, but somehow she managed to know where the party was and I guess sneak in. What struck me about her was that she was walking around in boys' pajamas, these gray pajamas, and I didn't really know who she was, but you couldn't help but notice her because she was in boys' pajamas. And she actually walked up to me and she said, "Do you know who I am?" And I said, "No, I don't know who you are." And she said, "You will."
But what she really needed was an insider who could help her make the right moves.
I think very often she took too long in the process to realize whether or not someone could or could not help her. She got scammed. I think as many times as she may have been accused of scamming men, I think men scammed her many, many more times.
Enter Camille Barbone. Camille and her partner, Adam Alter, ran the only professional studio in the music building. Madonna targeted her as somebody who could further her cause. Her
first encounter with me was a flirt. I stepped onto an elevator. She was already on the elevator. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Did you do it yet?" And for a minute I was taken aback, but I said, "Do it yet?" "No, not yet." And it became a running joke.
Having aroused Camille's curiosity, Madonna got on the phone and organised a gig at the legendary Max's Kansas City, especially so that Camille could come and check her out. Unfortunately, she didn't turn up.
She came storming into my office the next morning, slamming things. I was completely and utterly intrigued. And I just said, "I'm sorry, I had a headache. I didn't make it to your gig." And she just lit into me. It's my life. How could you do this to me? I set that gig up just for you. Just went off on me, and I really enjoyed it, and I really thought she was a star at that point in time.
Madonna had found her insider.
I said, "How would you like a manager?" And she just screamed, "Yeah," and jumped up in the air and kind of threw her arms around me, and that's how it all began.
I didn't really feel any emotional kind of nurturing going on. It was more of like, "I'm going to make you a star," and the other person saying, "I'm going to be a star."
My whole premise for managing Madonna was more to advance her career in a humane and a moral and a clean way. It was very obvious to me that there were a lot more things that Madonna needed, like a place to live, like food to eat, like clothes to wear. So I basically began to support Madonna.
The first thing that the new manager did was to sack the band, all of them.
I didn't think that they were of the record industry caliber that I would need in order to get a record deal for her.
While Camille was guiding Madonna firmly into the mainstream, the girl found time out from her day job to investigate a whole different crew.
Oh, you're society's boy. You make some little...
Madonna and Camille spent a year honing a live set and recording a demo tape of 4 Madonna compositions, including I Want You and High Society, which was perhaps inevitably about an ex-boyfriend. It was highly polished but slightly grim.
Camille was interested, it seemed to me, in straight up, you know, Olivia Newton-John type of rock and roll. I don't think Madonna was ever interested in that. I think she bought into it because it was a much better job than Dunkin' Donuts.
And she was now singing for a lot more than her supper.
Madonna basically pushed me to my financial limits, my loyalty limits, my patience limits. She would give me 20 or 30 reasons why she had to have something, whether it be a new outfit for a performance, or a new guitar, or a weekend at the beach with her boyfriend. She would push me for everything. And I very often found it very difficult to say no.
Meanwhile, unbeknown to Camille, while Madonna was out clubbing, drummer Bray was also moonlighting. He was experimenting with a hipper sound.
The deal I had with the musicians in the building was one where I'd play drums for you and just give me the keys to the room. And, you know, at night when we were done rehearsing with whatever, you know, band it was, I would, you know, turn on the stuff and start working on some dance tracks. And ultimately realized that the wise move would be to ask Madonna to sing the songs.
This was the beginning of the real beginning. The songs they made behind Camille's back were the first to marry pop and dance in the way that would make her millions. Don't You Know was one of their first efforts.
We came up with a tape of 4 songs. Everybody, a song called Stay, a song called Don't You Know, and a song called Ain't No Big Deal.
I think Madonna not bringing the tapes to me was evidence of the fact that things were not going too well with us.
That was the tape that she began to take around to the clubs, to danceteria.
By the end of 1981, the downtown club scene was buzzing, and at its heart was danceteria. Madonna was like a heat-seeking missile. She'd plugged into the hottest DJ in Manhattan with an in to the major record companies.
The major turning point was Madonna taking that tape into danceteria and Mark Kamen's playing it.
After 2 years with Camille, the tension between them was reaching fever pitch.
We would have all-out screaming matches at each other, yelling and screaming. And she did not feel that I was moving her career fast enough. And Madonna has to be one of the most impatient people on the face of the planet.
But actually, Camille was making headway.
I had a record deal for her through Paul Atkinson, who was the head of A&R at Columbia at that point in time. And Paul and I were negotiating the terms.
At last, Madonna could see light at the end of the tunnel. She knew that if she made the right moves, the deal she wanted was within her grasp.
She was represented by a music entertainment attorney, and he knew that I was paying for everything. And he called and he said, Madonna wants to have a meeting. Let's talk about how you guys are working together and what the future is going to hold. And I thought it was just going to be a strategy meeting when I got there, and it wasn't that. I was fired at that meeting. I spent everything that I had on Madonna's career. It strapped me financially, it bankrupted me.
By the spring of 1982, Madonna was living in the East Village. She could no longer rely on the financial support of Camille Barbone and held down a variety of jobs by day and revelled in the thriving nocturnal club scene by night.
I was sitting in a nursing home, visiting a friend's mom, and the older people were doing calisthenics. And they were doing calisthenics to the radio, and it was WBLS in New York City, and it was Madonna. And I literally was transfixed. I could not believe what I was hearing. I walked right across the lobby of the nursing home, went as close as I could to the radio, and just couldn't believe my ears. Then I started to call my attorneys and find out exactly what had transpired.
Camille sued for breach of contract and eventually settled for a sum that covered her losses.
In Madonna's own way, she made her peace with me by making one telephone call. In essence, saying to me, you're a bitch and I'm a bitch, but we do work well together. So why don't you just follow my lead and we'll work out a job for you. And it just wasn't what I wanted.